Have you ever noticed something strange about your love life? You date different people. They have different faces, different jobs, different personalities, but somehow the relationship always ends up feeling the same. At first, they seem calm, mature, and emotionally steady. You feel drawn to that. You think this person is different. They don't play games. They're not needy. They have their own life. But after a while, something changes. They get busier. Their replies get shorter. You see them less often. At first, you try to stay reasonable. Maybe they really are tired. Maybe work is stressful. Maybe you're overthinking it. But then your body starts reacting before your mind can catch up. When your phone lights up, your heart jumps. When it stays silent, your thoughts start running wild. You ask, do you still feel the same about me? And they say, you're thinking too much. So now you start questioning yourself. Am I too sensitive? Am I too clingy? Am I asking for too much? And the worst part is when that relationship ends and you finally meet someone new, the same story slowly starts again. Different person, same anxiety, same silence, same emotional spiral. The book we're talking about today is Relationship Rebuilt, and the most powerful idea in this book is not about how to make someone love you or how to play the game better. It goes much deeper than that. It says that many of us are not really choosing love freely. We are choosing from an old emotional pattern. In other words, the reason you keep getting hurt in the same way may not be that you don't know how to love it, may be that you're still using an old strategy to look for safety. The main idea behind this book comes from attachment theory. Attachment theory was first developed by the British psychologist John Bowlby. In simple terms, it says that early in life we develop an internal program for love and safety. When I need you, will you be there when I'm afraid? Will you respond? When I come close to you, will I feel safer or will I get hurt? As children, this program shapes the way we relate to our caregivers, but as adults, it quietly follows us into dating, marriage, and close relationships. That is why some people become extremely afraid of being abandoned the moment they fall in love. If their partner gets distant, they panic. If a text message goes unanswered, they imagine the relationship is falling apart. If the tone feels even slightly different, they start replaying the whole conversation in their head. This is often called anxious attachment. People with anxious attachment are not loving too much. They are not naturally dramatic or difficult. What they need is actually very simple: clarity, reassurance, consistency, and emotional presence. But here's where things get painful. The more they try to confirm the relationship, the more pressure the other person may feel, and the more the other person pulls away, the more anxious they become. So the relationship turns into a loop. The more I fear losing you, the harder I try to hold on. The harder I hold on, the more you want to escape. And this is where so many relationships become exhausting. Even when neither person is trying to hurt the other, there is another attachment style that looks very different from the outside. These people seem independent, calm, rational, and put together in the beginning. They can be warm, they can be charming, they can make you feel like you finally found someone stable. But once the relationship becomes more serious, once you start talking about the future, commitment, deeper feelings, or emotional needs, they begin to pull back. They might say, I've just been busy, or I need some space, or why does everything have to be so heavy? This is often called avoidant attachment. Avoidant people are not necessarily incapable of love. Many of them do want closeness, they want connection, they want to be understood, but when intimacy gets too close, something inside them becomes tense, because in their emotional world, depending on someone may not feel safe, expressing needs may lead to rejection, getting too close may feel like losing freedom. So they learn a survival strategy: if I keep a little distance, I stay safe. And this is why anxious and avoidant people are so often drawn to each other. The anxious person sees the avoidant person as calm, strong, and self-contained. The avoidant person feels wanted, admired, and emotionally important because of the anxious person's warmth. At the beginning, this combination can feel powerful. It can even feel like chemistry. But once the relationship starts to deepen, the pattern appears. The anxious person wants reassurance. The avoidant person wants space. The anxious person moves closer. The avoidant person moves farther away. One person thinks, I just want to know that you care. The other person thinks, I just need room to breathe. Both people feel misunderstood. Both people feel hurt, and both people believe they are only trying to protect themselves. This is what the book describes as the anxious avoidant cycle. And many people mistake this cycle for deep love. Why? Because it feels intense. The highs are high, the lows are painful. There's silence, then closeness, distance, then reunion, tears, then passion, breaking apart, then coming back together. The emotional swings are so strong that the brain can confuse intensity with meaning. You start thinking, maybe we are meant to be. Why else would it hurt this much? Why else would I find it so hard to leave? But this book gives us an important warning. Instability is not the same as health. Pain is not proof of love. Sometimes you cannot let go of someone, not because they are right for you, but because they activate a wound that already feels familiar. And familiarity can easily be mistaken for chemistry. So what does a healthy relationship actually feel like? The book talks about a third attachment style, secure attachment. A securely attached person is not someone who never gets emotional. They still have fears, they still argue, they still have bad days. The difference is that they believe problems can be talked through, they believe needs can be expressed, they believe intimacy does not have to erase independence, and they do not see every conflict as the beginning of the end. A secure person may not feel as exciting as someone who keeps you guessing, but their stability is exactly what makes the relationship safe. They do not disappear to create attraction. They do not use silence as punishment. They can respond, and they can also be honest. They may need space, but they do not use space to abandon you. They may have emotions, but they do not turn emotions into weapons. And when you spend enough time with a secure person, something interesting happens. Your nervous system begins to relax. You start learning that a late reply does not automatically mean they stopped loving you. You learn that expressing a need does not mean you're weak. You learn that a relationship does not have to feel like a battlefield in order to be real. This is one of the most valuable ideas in relationship rebuild. The point is not to label yourself forever. The point is not to say, I'm anxious or he's avoidant, and then use that as an excuse for everything. Labels do not heal anything by themselves. What matters is seeing the pattern clearly and then choosing to respond differently. If you lean anxious, the first step is not to shame yourself. The first step is to pause and ask, do I truly need communication right now, or has my anxiety been triggered? Am I sending this message to solve the problem, or am I trying to stop the panic in my body as quickly as possible? Of course, you're allowed to have needs, you're allowed to ask for reassurance, you're allowed to want emotional consistency, but the way you express it matters. Instead of saying you don't love me anymore, do you? You might say, I noticed we haven't talked much these past couple of days and I've been feeling a little uneasy. I just want to check in and see if we're okay. The first sentence pushes the other person into defense. The second one tells the truth without attacking. If you lean avoidant, you also do not need to label yourself as someone who is bad at love. You can start by observing what happens inside you when the other person gets close. Do I truly not want this relationship anymore, or am I afraid of losing my freedom? When I want to shut down, do I genuinely need time to think, or am I avoiding a difficult conversation? It is okay to need space, but space becomes much safer when you communicate it clearly. For example, instead of disappearing, you could say, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I need a couple of hours to calm down, but I will come back and talk to you later. That sentence protects your need for space without throwing the other person into uncertainty, and that is what rebuilding a relationship really means. It does not mean becoming a totally different person. It means becoming more aware of what happens inside you. When love gets close, you begin to understand where your reactions come from. You begin to see that someone pulling back does not always mean they do not care. You also begin to stop confusing instability with attraction and emotional chaos with destiny. There's another important reminder in the book. The people you choose are part of your healing. A lot of people spend years trying to change someone who is emotionally unavailable. They try to make a distant person consistent. They try to make someone who avoids commitment suddenly become safe. But sometimes the most important question is not, how can I try harder? Sometimes the real question is, did I choose someone who is actually willing to build safety with me? A relationship cannot be rebuilt by one person alone. Even the best communicator will eventually feel exhausted with someone who constantly shuts down. Even the most independent person can become anxious if they live too long inside uncertainty. So when you evaluate a relationship, do not only ask, how much do I like this person? Ask, who am I becoming in this relationship? Do I feel more relaxed? Do I feel more like myself? Can I speak honestly? Do I feel supported enough to face the rest of my life? If the answer is yes, the relationship is probably nourishing you. But if you're becoming smaller, quieter, more afraid to speak, more desperate for tiny signs of affection, then you may need to ask yourself, is this really love, or is my attachment system repeating an old script? What makes relationship rebuilt so powerful is that it does not reduce love to tricks or tactics. It shows us that many people do not lose control in love because they are bad people or immature people. They lose control because at some point in their lives, they learned a way to protect themselves. Some people cling because being left alone once felt unbearable. Some people withdraw because being too close once felt dangerous. Some people please others because they are trying to earn certainty. Some people run because they are trying to protect the last piece of safety they have. These strategies may have helped you survive in the past, but they may not help you build the kind of love you actually want. Now, real rebuilding begins when you can finally say, I can need someone without losing myself. I can love someone without being controlled. I can be close and still have boundaries. I can express love, and I can also express what I need. You're not too clingy. You're not too cold. You're not broken. You once learned a way to love that helped you feel safe, and now, slowly, you can learn another way. That is what relationship rebuilding really means.